And with that, thank you again for taking a minute out. It's wonderful to meet you.
Absolutely.
So before we get into your good work, I want to know this. 5 years ago, this pandemic changed so much for all of us. How did you make it through the pandemic time of 2020, and how has going through that affected you in 2025?
Wow. First of all, thanks for the question.
Sure.
I can clearly remember being very worried about not just health and my family, that was like on top of mine, but also a person in the professional development world when all of a sudden budgets were cut in organizations. I can remember being very worried about my business, being an LLC, women owned business in my town. And I'm thinking, okay, how can I make it? What I did was I quickly realized that even though people don't have a budget for this, or a lot of people don't, I can still help out. So I actually opened up a number of pro bono sessions for months just to help people keep their doors open, to help them think about how they can innovate, do things differently. A lot of people were open to it, not everyone. Sadly, some closed, but it really caused me to take a look at my business and how I can meet the current need out there. And so I really started shifting because a lot of people were dealing with an unexpected tsunami of anxiety, mental health issues. I thought about what can I do that? I'm not a clinician, I'm not a doctor, I don't play one on TV, yet I have had some training. I have a certification in brain health education, and I could pass along tools to let people take and use before they get to a crisis. And so my business actually started to shift at that point. And organizations and counties and governments, a lot of them have grant opportunities for mental health training and education. And so that's kind of what I moved under. I tied in my leadership, professional development, a more holistic approach with an emphasis on brain health, wellness, and mental health.
And I think that's the one thing about living through COVID is that prior to that, mental health didn't get the proper due that it needed. And I think that that was probably one of the most beneficial things of coming out of this is that we recognized it for what it truly is instead of just saying, oh, you just don't feel good, get over it.
Exactly. And I can remember clearly someone who is in the mental health world. They were talking about mental health is just important as washing your hands, like that hygiene mental health. And so that really started to shift my thinking. Yes, we need to be physically safe, but what can we do to really build and promote that psychological safety that us individuals and teams are looking for?
So let's get to the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis right now in 2025. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds at career day. The kid in the back of the room is like, hey, what do you do for a living? How do you answer them?
Wow. Okay. Putting me on the spot, but I'll try to come up with something. I help people learn about how their brain works, just like they learn how to use their iPhone, a device that helps them have more focus, work faster, get to the goal they want. So that's just in simple terms. I do it through the lens for leaders and organizations, and especially supporters, is teaching them brain basics. A lot of people, we know that there's a huge gap in just the need for mental health resources and professionals. And so I'm looking, how can we fill that gap? A lot of people are tired of talking about mental health. They need support, but giving them a new lens and a new language to talk about it makes it easier. And it's like our brains are wired to keep us alive, not just physically, but also psychologically, emotionally, mentally. And so, even for some people, talking about mental health issues or trauma can be very triggering. And while they need support, there's a part of them that shuts down or is resistant to even talking about it. So, brain health has become a more fun way of introducing these concepts to help people know how to calm their brain or boost their brain if they're struggling with feeling disconnected, or maybe they're feeling impulsive or just scattered and not feeling like themselves again. There's some easy tools out there to promote wellness in specific key brain areas that are simple and easy to use.
The thing that's interesting about the brain is that we hear all these stats about just different things that are interesting. And I remember early on in my life hearing that the brain is the biggest muscle in your body. It is the most vital muscle. So I think about what you're talking about with brain health this way. For people to have a level of mental health where they can actually reroute their synapses so that they feel good or they can get through things, it's a muscle that needs to be exercised. So pick up a hobby, pain, do
Yes.
something different. Read an encyclopedia, pick up something that you're not used to reading or do
Yeah.
something. And it's just, you know what I'm saying? There's a level of exercising our brain that can refine our mental acuity to get over things because life can be difficult.
Absolutely. And what I found for myself personally, and in a journey with helping my father navigate a brain health disease for over 15 years, was that focusing on those things was helpful, but the things that we sometimes do counteract what we're trying to do. In other words, we can incorporate new learning. That's really good for the brain. But if we're pushing the midnight oil and not taking breaks during the day, that's going to kick back on us. And so the way I'd love to teach people, and this really helped me, was understanding the things that I was actually doing to work against my brain, and then how can I better partner it? So these things I want to do, a new hobby, come in more easily, and I'm not feeling the overwhelm as much, and that's not hijacking what I want to do.
So let me ask you this. When you were 12 years old, what was your dream job? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh my goodness. That's something that I probably asked myself through my 40s, but at the time I wanted to be a veterinarian. I
Oh,
am just an animal lover, and what we now know about animals, they can help us produce oxytocin, which is a feel good chemical. And so, even just cuddling a dog or cat can help us to feel good. But at the time, that was something that I was very like, I would be the one who would be helping the little birds who fell out of the tree, or the bunny rabbit, was hurt, or the dog. That I was that person.
it's interesting the whole idea of service dogs. And my son's on the spectrum. He's 20 years old. And if
Yes.
he can just have a little time, he had a beloved dog that he had since he was younger, and we lost her a few years ago. But we have another dog, a Malinois. And if he
Mm.
gets a little bit of time to hang out each morning, it's so huge. It just absolutely will wake him up. It's the best alarm clock in the world.
Oh my goodness, that's really great. And service dogs have this amazing, especially they have to go through a testing process, as you know. But a lot of animals have this empathy, they have this connection with the human. And it was interesting. It wasn't until I was working with first responders who were impacted by PTSD in an equine program working with horses that I learned that some animals literally pick up on our nervous systems. And
Yeah.
horses are a great example because they're prey animals, meaning they are in high alert because animals are going to be preying on them. So they're always alert. And when they're around humans, they also pick up things like we could look completely fine and calm on the outside, but if internally we're freaking out or somewhere else, they pick up on that and they mirror that back to us.
Yeah. And the amazing thing about animals is they don't feel the way the humans do. They don't get self-deprecating. They don't get down on themselves. They don't beat themselves up. Why me? They supersede all of those human emotions, and that's why they're all just kind of raw and ready to make us feel good.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Very well put. Like there's so many things that I think animals can, they're such a gift to us.
Yeah.
And they're here, I believe, to help us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So let me ask you this. When you were growing up, what were some of the foundational seeds that were planted into you that have grown into you helping people with their mental acuity, helping them in leadership styles, just helping people get to a better, healthier place? What were those things that were instilled in you that has evolved to your voice and finding where you belong?
Yes, I had a very nurturing mother, just a very close relationship. We had a lot of love in our family. Unfortunately, my dad and my sister suffered from brain health challenges. And I can remember even at 3 years old being acutely aware that something was off. And I thought it, in order for me to feel better, I recognize it now, I was the peacemaker in the family. Like I wanted everyone to feel safe and protected. And over time, that grew into fear of setting someone off or them not be comfortable. And so I became aware of, not at the time, I didn't have an understanding that the brain was involved to the point of affecting their relationships, their ability to be successful in life, but I knew it wasn't their fault. And I went on a quest probably when my oldest son was an infant, when he was diagnosed with mild cerebral palsy. I began to understand the role that the brain played, not just in our physical biology, but in our psychology, our, even spiritual part of our lives, our social circles. I began to get really curious about that, but also for myself too. And then looking back, I started connecting the dots that, wow, what if my dad or what if my sister, it wasn't just mental health challenge, it was actually brain health challenges manifesting as anxiety and these other things. And so I really went on a quest back in 2017 because I was having my own brain health challenges, brain fog, other issues. And I had a scan and it revealed 3 mild injuries and PTSD. And so I started going on my own brain health journey. And fast forward to that, I was able to meet the person who oversaw these scans, Dr. Daniel Amen. He's big in the brain health world. And I'm able to work with him today to educate other people on the importance of brain health.
So, who has been that inspiration, that heroic force in your life that's allowed you to localize and to get the scan, to figure out where you're at, and to in turn help others? Who has been that person for you?
I would say my first breath, my mom, she passed before I had the scan. Yet at the time she passed, she was in caregiving mode for my father, who was about that time diagnosed with Huntington's disease. She was also a part time nurse. So she was in the role of taking care of everyone else. And she put herself last. And I believe that in part that led to certain things in her physical health to break down and we lost her early. So she was likely my turning point for this. And one of my mentors shares this quote that just it's ingrained in my brain: listen to the whisper, don't wait for the 2x4. And so I look at the death of my mom as that 2x4 moment when I started to look at myself, how I was going about doing things. And when she passed, I picked up where she left off. And it ended up being a little over a 15-year journey with my dad. And during that time, I had at least 2 bouts of burnout, but I decided I did not want to get to that place, that I needed to find a way to survive was part of it, but I really wanted to grow and thrive. I loved my work. I felt called to a big mission, but I struggled honestly with knowing how I would do both at the same time, help my dad, help these people. And so I had to really find what worked for me and also look at, how do I build my resilience? I realized I was already resilient. I didn't even know it. But how can I fortify these areas in my life, my physical, psychological, social, and spiritual areas of my life so I don't crumble?
So, to get to a better place, to get to a better mental place in our lives, we have to take risks.
Mhm.
What's the biggest risk that you've taken in your life?
Oh, there's probably a long list. I'll
Yeah.
go with the first one. Probably the biggest risk for me because I was responsible for his care. My sister, at the time before she passed, she wasn't able to help. So I was the prime decision maker, commuting back and forth. So the biggest risk I took for me, I feel, was putting myself first.
Yes.
Start take caring. Like I started to regroup, like get away and retreat. And once a month, I got away, non negotiable. I made sure everything was in place. It was the hardest thing to do, knowing what was happening on the home front, knowing something that could happen while I was gone.
Yeah.
But my health was starting to take a hit. The burnout, compassion fatigue, you name it, other health issues. And so I had to choose me so that I can still be here for my family. I was still raising my sons, have a family. I just needed to take care of my own four walls. And it was for me at the time, one of the hardest and riskiest decisions to make.
So at the end of the day, what gets you up every day? What gets you up to do this work, to take care of your brain health, to take care of your family, your life? What is that collective energy for you every day? Is there a balance? How does that work?
Yeah, so balance is a funny thing because I don't know if we can have perfect balance. I think that's something we want.
Yeah.
Um, I look at it as alignment, like looking at the different areas. Are they aligned? Because honestly, if you're responsible for others, whether it's a team, a mission, a loved one, you're going to be off balance in some of the areas. So expecting yourself to have perfect balance is not realistic. Um, so for me, really looking at what areas first are off balance, where are they off track? And I kind of envision this as like, let's say I'm driving down the road and I have this destination to get to. I can have that address plugged in, but if I'm off track, it's going to take me much longer. It's going to be much harder. I could run out of fuel. So the best thing for me to do is to pull off on the road and take a look and see, okay, what's happening here? So when I get in a state of anxiety and overwhelm, we're in that overthinking. There's a lot of things that we do with good intention, but I've heard this term, we're overing it. We're overcommitted, we're overthinking, we're overgiving. And that was definitely me. So really evaluating, okay, where have I exceeded my capacity in this moment? And a term or a phrase that I heard in school was this idea of window of tolerance. Like every day we have a certain window of tolerance depending on our system, but are we exceeding that? Are we working within that? But it's really getting to know our brain, our body, what we're showing up, how we behave and how we think when we're exhausted versus when we're well rested, when we're thinking good thoughts. So it's really taking this know thyself, Socrates says, to a different layer
Yeah.
of self awareness.
So if you were to have a dream tonight and ran into a much younger version of you, 18 years old, ready to go out into the world, and you could give that version of you a piece of
Oh,
advice based on this life you've lived, the wisdom you've accumulated, what advice would you give?
you're on the right track.
Yeah.
I lived for many years, even like several decades, questioning my path. Am I doing this the right way? Am I doing it? Is this the right way to go? And I look back and my strengths weren't like you can look at people and see talents and strengths. I didn't know what mine were. Like they felt hidden to me. And even people that I looked up to struggled to say, what they were. It was always, oh, you're so nice. You're such a good listener. For me, that wasn't enough. It's a great trait, but I really didn't know the depth of my strengths. And I had to go through a process of digging those hidden things out. So that's probably the piece advice. You're on the right track.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
So let's say you walk into a room of everybody that you've had that's been a client or a colleague that you've had that knows you in a professional sense, and you could go up to a podium in a room with all of them and tell them one fun story, the coolest place you ever visited, the first concert you went to, jumping out of an airplane, some kind of fun story
Yes.
that might humanize you in a different way. What would you tell that room of people?
Oh my goodness.
Mhm.
Oh, these are things. I'm one of those people I love to chew in thoughts and then I have really good thoughts. So I'm trying to think of one in the moment.
Yeah.
I would say, oh my goodness. Boy, this is like my mind is all of a sudden goes blank. Um, Something really fun. I would say about 8 years ago, I had the opportunity of going to Paraguay twice
Wow.
to train with a group of leaders and work with micro farmers. I worked with financial advisors. I worked with a prime minister, with learning what their core values were. And it
Yeah.
was such an amazing opportunity. Like, I felt so honored. First of all, I thought, wow, why me? Who am I to do this? But then I realized, oh my goodness, this is an opportunity of a lifetime.
Yeah.
And it was it was one of those things that you hear a lot of people when they go and do something, it was more life changing for the person going out there.
Yeah.
So that stands in my mind.
That's awesome. So, of everything that you've done in your life up to this point, and more importantly, evolved to, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
Being a mom,
Yeah.
my sons are in their one of them's in his late 20s, the other one in early 30s. Out of any achievement, anything I've ever done, they're my greatest achievement.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, clients, colleagues, everyone that knows you in any capacity, but ultimately you're the one that runs the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I see myself as a woman on a mission who is bold, and boldness doesn't always have to be loud. I see myself as a compassionate person who loves to walk alongside other people to help develop them and help them live into their potential.
So, we're living in very strange times, and I know we probably always say that. Maybe it's an older generation thing where just things seem like we've entered kind of a weird twilight zone. How do you remain hopeful? How do you remain hopeful for you, for your clients, for your children? How do you do that?
I remain hopeful because I see a lot more people being open to stepping back, get out of the hustle, and really take a look at their life, what's going on, and if they want to continue that path. I see a lot of people wanting more inner peace, wanting to lead with more steadiness and calm versus all this charisma and achievement. And that gives me hope because I see that there's a lot of potential and there's a lot of opportunity to really break patterns and thinking that we've been taught since youth.
Speaking of patterns and thinking, if anybody's ready to get better brain health, they're curious, they want to reach out, they want to learn more, they want to hire you, any of the good business, where do they go?
Yes, so they can go simply to my website, discovernextstep.com. And if you scroll down the homepage, there is a download. It has, I think, 11 brain smart ways to regroup. They're really small steps that they can do during a busy day. So they're practical and they can help people have more energy, feel clear, and recharged.
Okay, excellent. Barbara, this has been so interesting and refreshing. Thank you so much for your story. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Joe. It's been a joy to be here.
Looking to get new clients to your business through cold calling or email marketing? At Agency Y, they envision a world in which small and big companies have equal chances to win new customers in the market. Their purpose is to bring parity and reduce the gap between large and small firms with the help of their cold calling and cold email marketing services. Use the code Joe Dimino 10 at www.agencyyyy.org/coldcallingjoe.php or www.agencyyyy.org/emailmarketingjoe.php to get 10% off your first order. This is Joe Dimino of Neon Jazz and Famous Interviews, and I stand behind Agency Y to meet your business dreams.